Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I realize it is a hard slot because I am standing between you all and beer and nibbles. So we'll keep it light, we'll keep it brief. But I do want to introduce both myself and Anant briefly. I'm Practice Director for Automation Engineering at Planet. That's a really great spot to be in because I get to play with a lot of things. I get to experiment and just enjoy doing lots of innovative work, which is fun. But one thing that I'm realizing as I'm getting older is that I'm slowly just getting old. And so I have to surround myself with people that are smarter than myself. And so Anant's one of those people. He's one of our up-and-coming consultants. And so he's joining me today to help me. Also because as I get older, I find it's harder for me to talk and type at the same time. So it's just, he's going to do a lot of that for me. So yeah, please welcome Anant. I think it's his first time speaking in Australia, so yeah. Very good. All right, so first things first, I noticed this on the way into the city today. I was driving and please, I have a confession to make. Yes, I did touch my mobile phone in the car, but I did see, I don't know who campaigned off, but there was a big testing sign on one of the automatic billboards on the Monash today. So I thought that was pretty appropriate for today. So, but yeah, testing images in production there. It's always a nice one to see. So yeah, that's and appropriate for today, given that we had testing talks. So yeah, just a little bit of interesting sightings in the real world there. All right, what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about Playwright MCP. Playwright MCP, is it an AI tool? No, you use it with AI. It's very complementary. We'll talk a little bit about what MCP is in general, and we'll talk about what Playwright MCP is and how that kind of works and what it exposes to your LLMs. And then we're going to go through some examples, and we're going to build from very simple scenarios, so where we just issue single commands, all the way through to getting more and more complex in terms of what we can ask LLMs and how they can interact with Playwright MCP to build up different use cases. We'll talk about what we can get out of Playwright MCP, so what do you do with what you get out of Playwright MCP, and then finally we'll touch on some advanced features. So when you run it in productionized settings or in agentic mode, what are the things you need to look out for, and what are some of the settings that you can deal with and play with there. Please feel free to ask questions at any point during the sessions. Just raise your hand, leave it up. I'll try to keep my eyes open to see them. But there will be some question time at the end as well. Okay, a brief intro to MCP. How many of you have heard of MCP before and kind of know? Yep, plenty of people. That's great. So MCP is like the USB-C of the AI world. USB-C, right? You can plug your printer in. You can plug your flash drive. You can plug all manner of devices into a USB-C hub. And they all know how to talk the same language. They all know how to connect to your computer. And there's, loads the drivers automatically, and that all works. MCP is very much, I guess, a similar thing, but it gives LLMs the chance to talk a common language and be able to talk to different services services basically. So it's like an API, but for an API that LLMs can understand. So just think about that we've got MCP being the USB-C hub. You can have remote services. You can have MCP servers in the cloud. You can run them locally. Doesn't matter where. As long as they all talk the MCP language, the MCP protocol, that's what the P is in MCP, it means that your LLM can have access to what your MCP server is exposing. How does Playwright MCP work? So AI, and I say AI here generally, what it should be is an LLM. So an LLM client that is enabled to interact with MCP servers will generally call what's called a tool. So the MCP server will expose, I guess, a menu of services, and it'll say, hey, these are all the ways that I can be called, and here's what you should input, and this is the output that I'm going to give you. Generally, in the context of Playwright, it will call a tool, so in this case, browser click. Playwright MCP will then go and it'll pass that to a browser and say, hey, click this element, whatever element it is that you should be clicking. And that will then kind of trickle back into the LLM. It'll say, yep, I did that. And it'll generally, for most things, return a page snapshot of where it is. And that page snapshot is what they call the accessibility tree. It's just a view of what the page looks like from an accessibility point of view with references. So you'll notice in that picture there, apologies, it's a bit small, but you'll see there's a reference, E2, E3, E4, E6. The LLM will typically pick up those references. It'll get added to the LLM's context. So when you issue the next command, the LLM will know, hey, if I want to press the login button, it'll say ref E9, and Playwright will know, oh, ref E9, yeah, I know what that is. So it's kind of a bit of a locator scheme there. But we'll go into a little bit more detail around that as we go through. But the key thing to remember here is that Playwright MCP, it's just an API. It's just something sitting in front of Playwright that lets LLMs talk to it. It's quite simple. So what kind of tools does Playwright MCP expose? There's a list on there. There's many. You can do all the things that Playwright could normally do in any automation test. You can click, you can open browsers, close them, you can look at console messages, you can drag, hover, evaluate JavaScript, upload files, fill forms, navigate back, view network requests, press keys, all of those things. A couple of other things you can do is tab management. So if you've got a website that opens up different tabs, you can tell it to ask it what tabs are open and open up different tabs. A couple of other things around browser installation. So if for whatever reason a browser isn't installed, the LLM can instruct Playwright to do that. You can also generate PDFs, pull out Playwright tracing, and I don't know anyone that's used it, but you can also do coordinate-based actions, right? So click at this coordinate on the screen, right? X 100, Y 100, and yeah, it's a visual way of doing it. So bit random. I don't know why they put it in there, but I'm sure there's some interesting use for it. As with most things in AI, this talk is now old because Playwright on Tuesday released Playwright agents. And so, which is great. It's really, really good. Effectively, what Playwright are now doing is where Playwright, you would get Playwright, and then you would have to download Playwright MCP and kind of run it as a server. Playwright now bundles an MCP server with it. And so in, I think it's 1.56 version of Playwright, yep, they've introduced agents. And you can now call those agents to help you write tests and create tests. So I did try it. I couldn't quite get it to work as well as it did in the demos. So it's, sounds like it's still a bit of a beta feature. But I do encourage you to have a little bit of a play with it. I think it's quite interesting seeing the direction that they're going on. But certainly very interesting to know that they're now bundling an MCP server with Playwright as well. So yes, so that's the breaking news. I won't touch on it because, again, it happened on Tuesday and I'd already written the slides. So yeah, tough luck there, I suppose. But maybe next year, maybe a nudge, you can do that next year. All right. So this is all about Playwright MCP. So we're going to kind of go from the simple and work our way up to more complex examples. And the first thing that anyone's got to do is to get Playwright MCP set up. So the first thing you need is you need an LLM with access to MCP clients. So GitHub Copilot, Claude Desktop or Code, Codex, there's a whole list of them. If you go to follow the QR code, there's a whole list of different tools that are compatible with MCP and are able to call MCP servers. So once you've got an LLM with access, now GitHub Copilot, you can use it for free, but typically if you're using the free versions, you run out of requests pretty quickly. So I think you can have 50 requests per month on GitHub Copilot, which is nothing. You'll use that in like an hour. So generally, yeah, you might have to put up a little bit of cash to get it going and working really well. But it is pretty reasonable. So I think GitHub Copilot, what is it, 30 or 60 US dollars a month. And what we found is that one person using GitHub Copilot was able to save 2 to 4 days of time per sprint in terms of the amount of automation that they're doing. So now they didn't stop working for 2 to 4 days. They just automated 2 to 4 days worth of extra stuff. So, so that was really good. That definitely makes that $60 a month, or $60 US per month, I think it is, much more reasonable. So it's not heaps. Second thing you've got to do is configure your LLM to use Playwright MCP server. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, you've just got to tell it, hey, I want to use Playwright MCP. If you're using Claude Desktop, you've just got to configure it in that system. Again, there's a whole bunch of documentation on it. If you are using VS Code, there's one-click setup. You just go to the site, you click it, it spins up VS Code, and off you go. You're up and running. So I do encourage you to do that. The QR code there will link to the Playwright MCP documentation page. All right. So now, then, once it's all set up, you've actually got to start the service. So Anant, this is where you're going to come in. We are going to live by the seat of our pants. We have not prepared videos. So we are hoping that the Wi-Fi signal holds true. So for those of you who are streaming Netflix at the moment, can you please just hold off? So while he's getting set up, I was thinking about prompt engineering, and I was like, well, with artificial intelligence, you've got to really do a lot of prompt engineering, and I thought, well, I've got kids. They're real intelligences, and they're learning. Maybe I should try prompt engineering with my kids. So I was like, you were a good kid that likes broccoli, and now you will eat the broccoli. It didn't work at all. It failed horribly. So, all right, are you succeeding there? Yeah. You've got to exit out of the presentation. Yep. Keep alt-tabbing. Next one. Yep. And then end slideshow.
There you go.
Yep, there we go. All right.
Cool.
So, over to you on that.
Yeah. So thanks, David, for the intro and making me comfortable here. David has already given a background on what Playwright MCP, how to do it. How many of you think still AI is a buzzword and how I'm going to do it? As first Cam mentioned, how many of you have worked with Playwright MCP? Can I ask again if anyone has tried before Playwright MCP? Hands up. And do you think it helps? Yeah, it does. So again, coming back to demo, I think, again, please bear with us. We all know a joke around, I would say. Demo is a magic until unless it's working fine, and when it comes to the live, that's the major thing, right? So if you see on my screen, I'll just maximize it. The prerequisite for Playwright and MCP, you need an ID, which we are using a VS Code here. From the barcode what David showed, we have installed the server. From the extensions, you can see on my left that gets installed. What I need to do, I just need to start it. So I'm just going to right click and start the server. And it will take some time to running it. In the meantime,
interestingly,
on
a Mac, this is like instantaneous. On this woeful Windows laptop, it takes like 40 seconds. It's horrible. I cry every time.
Yeah. So let me go back to VS Code.
Oh yeah. Yeah. While we're waiting for that to start,
yeah.
Just go over to that GitHub page. We're going to kick something off here. All right. So I've created a bit of a test here, and we're gonna kick off Copilot's agentic flows, and we'll talk about that later. So let's just assign this to Copilot and let it work in the background for us. Because, hey, we've got to do something agentic. All right, there we go. Let's wait for a Copilot. There we go. A Copilot's picked it up. Good. All right.
Yeah, it's done now. So as David mentioned, what are we going to do here? Let's say I'm very new to automation. I don't know. I get afraid, oh, everyone is talking about the coding from the Selenium days to different tools. I have a background in UFT, some low-code tools, Big and Tosca Architect, some other tools. I always feel like how I'm going to do coding right there. What is this MCP? What is this AI bus? So let's assume we have all done our setup. We have put our VS Code, the servers and everything. I'm just going to ask MCP server to put some actions on my behalf. So let's say I'm just telling MCP server on the right bottom, if you see, I'm just giving some instructions to a server, open a browser, And let's say, for example, we'll go to a testingtalks.com.au. I'll just press enter.
Let's just configure this, see if we can get it a bit more visual. Hopefully the browser opens. There we go. We'll drag this over here. And then this one. Hopefully you'll be able to open it or not. Bear with us for a second. I did practice this before, I promise. Sorry? The Wi-Fi is actually not too bad. Yeah, it's more just, you know how it is when you've got like something up and then your browser pops up in the background and you want to show both at the same time. So that's kind of where we're getting.
Yep. So you can see that basically for the MCP server, you can start with the baby steps. That's what we did, right? I've just asked to navigate to the browser and open the testingtalks.com.au. Let's say I'll ask to click on register.
Cam, did you fix the bugs that I raised last year in my talk? No, he hasn't?
So yeah, but not all of them.
Oh, that's good. Well, that means that we'll hopefully find some bugs this time.
Here you go. So it has navigated to register. Does it sound okay, or you feel like it's a normal thing? Any thoughts? No? Let's do something else. How about I'll ask, could you please fill mandatory fields?
And that's very nice. He's asking like, could you please? You've been trained well. I just command it. I'm like fill in the fields now.
Only for the conference sake.
Yeah. When the AI apocalypse happens, they'll be like, oh, you were the one that always spoke to us nicely. So, yeah.
Here you go. So enter some details. Definitely we can nurture it as per our requirements. Okay. There's one captcha about there on the page, right? What do you think if I'll ask MCP server to click on that? Who think it will work?
Yeah. Show of hands. Who thinks AI can pass the test? Yeah, we've got a couple. All right.
Let's try it.
Let's give it a go.
Yes, it mocks it and it has done it. As I said, on the requirement basis, we can advise MCP server to fill it in a better way. It has done on its own basis.
Yeah, sorry, Cam, for all the fake registrations.
Let's try what it says.
The nice thing about that is you can have typos and the LLM generally figures it out. It's like, oh, I think I know what you mean. Oh, look at that.
It has clicked on the checkbox.
All right, so we just passed a really crucial test here, right? This is like the I am a human.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. It didn't work for me in the demo. When I did it, when I was practicing it, it showed like the picture of all the bicycles you had to choose, and it was like, I can't do this. So, yeah.
Cam, should I register with these details?
No. We'll be kind to Cam. We won't register anything.
Okay, cool. So just to give you a glance of it, these are the baby steps which you can perform. But MCP server has stored these abstract information at the back end. We can definitely give our commands in a better way. So let me put it out what we can do around here. One sec. We do have already those scripts. Do you want to go to the next script slide?
Yeah, go for the next one. You guys can see our notes. There's nothing. We have nothing to hide. It's all good.
Cool. So let's say I just want before that asking MCP server to take a screenshot. How many of you think it will take a screenshot or not? Anyone thinks it will not take it? That I'll let David answer whether it's admin access or not. Yeah. So if I'll go to code base, here you go. It's taken a screenshot. Now, as I said, these all were baby steps. We have given individual command one by one. Why not I try in a one go? So I'm just going to ask MCP server to open a browser, navigate to testing talks, click the register button, and fill in the form.
So this is a great example of now moving from those single steps to compound
I'll
instructions
just
where
close the existing session. So I have given the sec.
Notice the screenshot has unticked the capture.
it times out. It times out, yeah. So there's another error there where it says like your session or your option is timed out. Yeah, it only gives you a few seconds of being ticked. Yes.
The capture is like some captures are you need to select which pictures kind of bike or car is seen.
Yeah, I tried to get it past that and it did not. I was doing a client demo and it went through, they had their site was behind Cloudflare's protection. And as I was going through it, it loaded up this Cloudflare. It's like, oh, you a robot? And it just the whole demo just fell apart. It was.
Types of captures can be bypassed or
So generally, so you can to an extent. So you saw in that case, it did actually tick it. So it's, you'll end up with a flaky experience because sometimes it'll tick it and other times it'll show the validation. The better way would be to, if you're using a test site that either has the capture disabled or has some other way of getting around it. I have seen other people, like you click on the accessible one and ask it to view the image. I've seen that hack at times.
I'll just give me a sec. It's not allowing me to copy the text. It's not allowing me to paste.
Not copy. Are you pressing function or control?
Control. Oh, my bad.
He's used to Macs, that's why. I know exactly what's going wrong here.
Let's put the context and let's see what it does. Should I restart the server? It's asking for me to.
Just start a new chat. Press
I
the
did.
plus. Yeah.
I did.
So VS Code is interesting because sometimes it just decides that it's going to use a different tool. And I think Cam had this issue when he was doing a demo as well, is that it will kind of, sometimes it just goes, and this is what Anand's battling with here, is that it will actually sometimes go, oh, yeah, I don't even need to open up Playwright because I've got your existing code base and I can see that it's opened up a homepage. So I'll just base it off the code that I already know.
So what I've done after this, it asked me, should I create a page object model for that? And I said, why not? A further step, right? It has navigated to all the steps what we asked for. And as David mentioned, VS Code behaves in a different manner. Rather than why not, I should get my code gets created out of it. So if you see, it's trying to create my registration page file as a page object model. And we will expand it to write test cases around that as well, which it's doing it at the moment.
So this is where, when you rely on the LLM, it's the LLM that's making the decision whether it should use Playwright or not. You can, as much as we've explicitly said, open up this browser, it's going, oh, I don't need to do that. I kind of know how to do that from your code already. So yeah, it's an interesting, it's still a bit touch and go at times. Yeah, it is a teenager. Petulant teenager is what it is.
So I'll maximize this. So I asked MCP server to build a code for me, all the page class object model. You can see that on the left-hand side in the repo, it has created all the base classes for me. Primarily, if I'll go for my test, it would have all these steps, which is navigating to a browser, opening the page, testing talk, and clicking on the register and filling the form as well. Does it sounds good, okay, better? That we can code it, as I said in the first instance, I don't have any background from the coding perspective, let's say. Yeah, but again, for everyone's reference, would it work? Would it doesn't work? What I would suggest, definitely upper hand we need to be. We need to use our intelligence, how we can make it work as per our reference. Could be some functionals are as a hallucination, it's not working. We need to use it as per our needs. But the base framework, the turnaround time, which we learned in the previous session as well, is huge. Again, I'm a self-believer. As I said, I'm learning from my seniors as well. AI is the one which we would definitely use as a helper, but can we rely on it? I would definitely say no. But as a helper, can we improve? I would say 100% on that. Now, any questions on this for anyone?
Just a general question.
Yeah.
While we are filling the form, if say what if a pop-up comes up, like a beamer pop-up,
Yeah.
will it automatically click it, or we have to write a command for that?
It's a great question. Yeah.
The thing is, the beamer pop-up will come. It won't be like consistent. Sometimes it comes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't come.
The answer is that it depends on which LLM you're using. So some LLMs, and I've got some notes on this in a little bit on one of the slides. Some LLMs will kind of go, oh yeah, Playwright tried to do something, and it didn't work, and it'll just stop there. Other LLMs are much kinder. They'll go, oh, this didn't work, so let me try something else, and it'll be much more friendly and try to accomplish the task that you've given it. So GPT 4.1 is fast, but very terse, and will just kind of give you the minimum feedback, whereas something like Claude Sonnet is really a lot more verbose, and it gives you lots of kind of feedback. GPT-5 will go and it will try to kind of create those tasks, and you sort of reason its way through it a little bit better. So, yeah.
In the meantime, what I'd asked MCP server, could you please give me a top 3 user flows? Could be anything, right? So MCP server has given me first as a user registration, second one, event browsing and the details, and the third one, speaker session information as well.
So have you managed to open up a browser again?
I'll try the new one.
If you want to get this as parameterized data that you're reading from a .ts file, so we need to give that instruction accordingly to do that, or it can automatically based on the scenario complexity.
You can, so if you are calling into Playwright MCP from a chat window, you can either supply the data in, or you can tell it to pull data from somewhere else. If you are using it to create a test, you can instruct it to create a test that is parameterized. Really, the Playwright MCP, I guess, tool here, all it's doing is it's supplying additional context into the LLM. So your LLM is still doing all the hard work, but Playwright's just supplying additional context, and that context is what is the current page looking like. And so when you're using Playwright MCP, if you're using it to explore a page, or if you're using it to write a test, either one of those tasks, all you're doing is you're giving that context to the LLM. So if you want to write parameterized tests, you can do that. There's a little bit that I'll touch on when we get further on down around how you handle secrets. So if you need to log in, how can you do that? So yeah, great question. We'll cover that in a little bit.
Yep, it did. So I gave rather than putting a baby steps, I just asked for it. Could you please open a browser and click on registration? So it opened a new session for me and click on the register button.
Nice.
In the one command. Let's go further. We looked into this, how it can navigate, open browser, go to the certain tab or click on it. Why not? Let's try something else. So let's say I'll ask MCP server to open a new one, new website. I'll try that. Hopefully this time it will again open it.
When you are using it, you'll note that in VS Code is showing kind of the call that it's making, and it'll show the response as well. So if you do want to actually look into what's being supplied from Playwright, you can see that.
So I've just opened a website called the tvdb.com. I just want to play around with it. I just want to check which API call supplied all of these latest movies coming around it, right? How does MCP server gonna play around it? Let's see. Can you see it has given me again the context, what API it's using as a standard application patterns. But I'll just open, David, the new one.
You might need to open the browser again there.
I'll put it again.
Because you started a new chat.
Yeah. So first I need to go it again.
So it gets very fiddly when you are using it. You've got to kind of have a new chat session and the browser window open, and they've got to be synced. They do tend to get out of sync. So if you close the browser and then continue your chat, it'll kind of get lost because it won't have the browser context anymore. Or if you create a new chat but you still have the browser open, it gets lost as well. So it's not perfect, but it is handy to have.
So it's not great for parallel testing. Yeah.
It's great if you've got multiple screens because then everything's in the one place and you're not alt-tabbing everything. So, yeah. Sorry? It will, absolutely. Yeah. So what Anant's trying to show, oh, here we go.
But I think it's not.
Yeah, so you've got to, what Anant is struggling to get up and running here is opening a browser to a site that's using an API and then instructing Playwright MCP to say, hey, tell me what calls are happening in the background, which call is supplying the list of trending movies. And it typically does. It'll come back and it'll say, this is the API call that's returning your data. And at that point, you can then instruct it to say, well, great, write me an API client so that I can call it myself, or write me an API test, or write me a Playwright test that mocks that data. And so once it's gotten that context, that's where you can then build tests off the back of that.
It has launched, but again, don't blame me for that. It did work earlier, but could be a sharing screen.
All right.
So
our offerings to the demo go as well, obviously
yeah.
not sufficient.
Yeah. So do you want to touch base, David, on the last one?
Yeah, can you run that last command? That'd be awesome, thanks.
That's David's one favorite.
All right, good. No, don't run that one, that's fine. But it is a lead into my next slide, which we'll talk about. Actually, yeah, run it. I do need some more cash. I've got to send my kids to private school.
You don't know as earlier he put in all the painting.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So let's load this up again. See how we go. All right. So that last line is an interesting one, and I put that in there purposely because that kind of leads us into some of the advanced features, particularly if you're wanting to run in an agentic mode, so where you've got an agent that is spinning up a browser on its own, because there's all sorts of malicious prompts or even maliciously trained LLMs that could interact with the browser. And so there's a couple of security things and authentication issues that are a part of being able to use Playwright MCP in any sort of important way. So the first one is authentication. The last thing you want to really be doing is telling your LLM, hey, can you please log in with these credentials? And so Playwright MCP comes with, you can supply an authorization context file, much like you normally do with Playwright. So you can save a browser state in a context file. And when you spin up Playwright MCP, you can supply that file, and it'll then be able to browse and navigate to your site in an authenticated state. You can also supply secrets. So when instead of, if you do need to supply secrets, like usernames or passwords to be able to log in, you can supply a secrets file as an environment file so that you never have to tell your LLM what your secrets are. So if you're running it as a part of a CI/CD process, or if you're running it in any sort of automated process, you don't have kind of secrets floating around in log files and floating around in the open. The other thing you can do is you can define allowed and blocked origins. So you can say, well, I only want to give you access to my testing website. Now you also have to give it access to all of the downstream kind of APIs and Google trackers and all of those things if you want. Otherwise, it'll really block your site. When I first started using it, I just put in the single URL, and the site fell over because it was trying to load Google Tag Manager and load your analytics and call APIs from different domains and all of that stuff. So you've just got to be aware of the traffic that your site calls when you do allowing and blocking. But certainly it pays to have that in place from the start, just thinking in that security mindset. I believe GitHub by default blocks everything, so you have to allow your specific sites if you do it through GitHub Copilot. But yeah, it's something that you can specify. So it's definitely a concern that you need to have. Some of the other features that you can get out is you can save the Playwright traces and videos. So you can, when you start up Playwright MCP, you can say, yeah, I want you to save a video, or I want you to always save traces. And you can configure the browser in mostly the same way that you can configure it from any other automated test. So if you need a browser with a certain viewport size, if you need it to be simulating a device like an iPhone or an Android, if you need certain browser permissions, like should it have permission to know location, all of those sorts of things. You can even give it user profiles if you need to load extensions. All of those things that you can normally do through automation, you can also do through Playwright MCP. So pretty handy. While we're here, I'm going to go back to our agentic automation that we kicked off earlier, because I do want to show that. No. Battling with the multi-screens here. There we go. All right. So, and I'll make this a bit bigger for all to see. So I created a test, and what we did is we've said, yeah, great, you can use, I want you to write a Playwright test. You can browse the testing talks if you need to get context and locators. Copilot, now I've configured Copilot to use Playwright MCP. So this is in our GitHub. It's gone and created a pull request for me, which is awesome. And I can now go and we can see what it's done. It's implemented some tests. It's taken some screenshots. So those screenshots have obviously come from the site itself. But I can actually go and view the session, see what it actually did in the background. And what we'll see is that the first thing that GitHub did is that it spun up a whole bunch of MCP servers when it loads. Thank you, slow internet. There we go. So it spun up a couple of MCP servers. Because it's GitHub, no surprise, it's spun up the GitHub MCP server, but it's also spun up Playwright MCP server. And we can see a little bit further on down that at some point, there we go, it's installed Playwright browsers, and then it started navigating around to the site. And you can see what it did, what it came back with. There's the accessibility snapshot that it came back with. Apologies for the scrolling, I'll minimize that. And at some point, it started clicking around, and it started to explore the site to develop the test. And eventually, once it's gotten enough context, it's gone, yep, great, I can see all the error messages on the registration form. I'm going to take a screenshot, and then I'll keep page down, page down, page down. It's done all the things. It's created my tests, and eventually it's come back with a summary to say, hey, yeah, look, I created your test. I've modified these files. And, oh, by the way, I ran the test. They all passed, so we're all good. And we should be able to see where it ran the test. Let me test, progress update, run all tests to verify everything passes. Great. It did run the test and it passed. So this is a really great example of where having Playwright MCP in an agentic workflow works quite nicely, because instead of you having to give the site all of that, the agent all of that context, it can go and get it on its own. You just need to give it the URL and it can kind of figure itself out from the test. You can give it pretty vague instructions. I've tried it with like really, really dodgy like typos and everything, and it for the most part can figure itself out.
It does. In the demo also, I type it intentionally wrong, click on rather than said registration page. I said something, it picked up automatically that I'm referring for registration page.
All right, so final comment here. As we've heard a couple of times throughout some of the sessions, context and prompt engineering are still key. The more information you give your LLM, the better it is. So I encourage you to get the most value, to set context and use good prompts. So if you are using, if you can supply context, tell it about your company, tell it about your applications, tell it about kind of key user flows, tell it about all your coding standards and all of that. I'll quickly show you what that looks like in our side of things. So we have here all of our context. I believe it's under...
The presentation.
Oh, there we go. Battling. There we go. Let's try that again. So here are our Copilot instructions. We give it all the information on, and I'll make that a bit bigger. We give it all the information on what our framework should expect, what kind of configuration we use, what security considerations you should have, how you should build your directory structures and all of things like that. And when we want it to run with, we want it to create page objects, we give it instructions. So we give it quite a lot of context so that when those agents go and build what we want, it does it in the way that we want it. And I mentioned, that's been mentioned a couple of times in terms of using well-formatted prompts. So, let's click that, there we go. If you can use well-formatted prompts, so do some prompt engineering, give it the role. So like I said with my kids, like you are a good child and you eat the broccoli, you have to kind of instruct it the same way, right? You are a good automator and you write great tests. So that always helps. But again, that's all on the LLM side. Playwright is just an API in front of a browser that can talk to another LLM. And again, appropriate LLMs. So if you want fast and concise, GPT 4.1. If you want verbose, go for GPT 5. It's slow, but it'll give you a whole lot more context and it'll try different options and things like that. All right. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Yeah, over here.
And one of your examples, you basically said go and test this page.
Yep.
I'm assuming that the LLM is looking at the page, what's on there, and going, okay, this feels like a user flow. What it's missing is there's no intent there. It can look at the page and see what it is actually doing. It can't tell you what it's supposed to be doing.
Yes.
So how do you guard against that in that kind of scenario?
Context. So that context that I showed you before, and I said, tell it about your company, tell it about your application, tell it about what your user, what are your customers like. The more you can give it that, the better that context will be, and it'll be able to figure out your key user flows from that information a lot better. So we've got tools that do requirements generation and requirements refinement. That's all stuff that we give it. We're like, you are a finance company, and your key users are retirees with superannuation plans. That just helps to kind of really focus it. So it's all in the context. We also have prompts that are specifically formatted where, so I didn't show it off here, but we've got pre-canned prompts. So I can say, if I want it to look for accessibility issues, I can just go /accessibility, hit enter, and off it'll go. I can go /explore, and we've given it a prompt which is reasonably lengthy that says, I want you to focus on these things. I don't want you to focus on these things. And really kind of focus it to give it the output that we want. Great question.
Thanks. Must be nice to have requirements as well.
That's why we asked the LLM to write them for us, because we never get them.
Everyone, that was an incredible presentation. A round of applause.
Thank you.
Look, I know there's probably a few more questions for Dave. So, look, Dave is the most lovely, talented bloke I've ever met, to be honest. I've known him my whole career. He's supported me from pretty much I joined the industry as a graduate. Feel free to reach out to him. Add him on LinkedIn. He'll always be up for a chat and a bit of a yarn about testing. Love the stuff. So please, if you've got any questions or you want to catch up with Dave or Anant, please do so. Yep. All right. A question from David and Anant to the audience first and foremost.
Okay.
Talk.
What is one of the tools that Playwright exposes? Yep. In the black jacket. Yep. Sorry? Yes, coordinates. Yep.
I'll run it out. Congratulations, mate.